Hello everyone. Today we will talk about the difference between REST and SOAP. These terms you must have heard a lot in the design of web services and internet applications, let's see what are the differences between REST and SOAP. So REST basically stands for representational state transfer, and REST is basically an architecture. Whereas SOAP, it stands for service. This is object service object access protocol, and it is basically a protocol. So this is the first main difference between REST and SOAP. That uh, REST is an architecture, and SOAP is a protocol. So what is the difference between an architecture and a protocol? A protocol is actually simply, um, it simply describes how what will be the messages, what will be the message format, these exact messages that will be transferred between, one device to another, or different applications, um, which are, for example, programmed in different languages, and how they will communicate with each other. What will be the actual, message format, and how these messages will be, exchanged. Uh, so this is what a protocol is, whereas REST is actually an article. So article is REST is basically an architecture. So actually, architecture is basically at a bigger level than the protocol. It's like, you can say it is the architecture basically describes the different components or different parts of the system. It describes uh, the architecture level. It's a template, and it might contain a protocol inside it. Just like, this REST architecture, actually it uses HTTP protocol, so that's the first difference. The next is that actually REST is very simple. It's very easily implementable, and it's very easily extendable kind of an architecture. It can use XML, HTML, JSON data formats, whatever. Whereas SOAP, as I told before, it's a protocol. It's just a language you talk between different applications. But it is more complex than REST, and it uses XML only, and REST is basically it's more common, uh, and in 70% of the APIs these days we are using the REST based APIs. And what kind of functions we use in REST? The most commonly used the functions are get, post, delete, and patch. These are the HTTP based functions that we are using in REST. Uh, on the other hand, SOAP, of course, it's more detailed, it's more complex. It defines not only the language of communication between different applications, but also the security and the message transfer procedure. SOAP can also use HTTP, by the way. So I can describe the difference between SOAP and REST with the help of the structure of both of them. For example, SOAP is, you can say it is just like, uh, a kind of an envelope of message. You can have in this envelope a body of the message. You will have in this envelope, a header. So this header and body, this will define the SOAP structure. On the other hand, you should look at REST as a kind of an architecture, like, for example, you can have different components in these architecture. For example, you can have here your clients, which can be apps, Android apps, which can be iPhone apps, which can be web browser, anything, and and they are gonna use HTTP protocol, all these functions like get, put, post, etc., or delete to communicate with another uh, application server or web server, or web server. So this is a kind of an architecture, this whole. So on this side also, because SOAP uses this, sorry, this HTTP protocol, so you will have the communication, and this is a kind of an HTTP. These are HTTP functions that are used in between HTTP method, and the data format can be HTML, XML, or JSON. You can have any of these three data formats that are will be used to transfer the data using this HTTP protocol between the client and the server. So this is what REST is actually. So as you see, SOAP describes only the message, details, the formats, the security, the procedure, and the client is more or less the architecture. Not, sorry, not the client. The REST is more or less the architecture. It's not protocols. That's, I hope now you understand the difference between REST and SOAP in detail. They are actually quite different things. But many people, confuse themselves with this REST and SOAP. If they have this thing in mind that one of them is an architecture, we define different components and parts of a complete architecture or a template of an architecture, in which it also defines the data formats, the communication protocol, as for example, it uses HTTP with different functions like get, put, post, delete, etc., patch. And you have one side client, you have one side server. The communication is happening using HTTP protocol and JSON format, let's say data format, or XML format. So this whole thing describes REST. Whereas on the in SOAP, you have a message body, a header, and a kind of an envelope in which this header and message body is stored. It's like a kind of a message structure. This is called a SOAP structure. It defines then also the message transfer procedure and the security and everything. So this is the main difference between SOAP and REST. I hope you guys understood it. I will maybe in the next lectures describe SOAP and REST in more detail. But this is for now only the difference between them. Thank you very much for listening, and please don't forget to subscribe to my channel to keep me motivated. Thank you. Bye bye.